Hi, Mel here. I'm an integrative counsellor and I work online. I also offer training and workshops for professionals on mainly disordered eating, weight stigma, and body image. And I write about these on my blog as well. Today, I want to talk about the recent South Park episode about weight loss injections. I had been working on something in the background, writing something about this, but it ended up being quite lengthy, probably appear in about a year. Many other things to do. So, but yeah, I thought having watched the South Park episode that I would probably run through some things about that. Surprisingly thought that it was probably better than I expected. And some of the points that they raised were quite important. So one being that in the South Park episode, the women in the town are, the thin women are all very desperate. All the thin mums of the town are very desperate to get their hands on it so they can wear these little crop tops. Obviously it's very extreme and over the top, and obviously it can be quite offensive because that is the way that South Park do it. And they kind of are, their way of, I guess, is to try and be offensive to everyone. I think that the point with that is that there are thinner people trying to get their hands on in weight loss injectables to kind of lose a little bit of weight. In that sense, for me, it's also quite scary because there could be people who are potentially quite low weight and have eating disorders who also could be using these drugs as well. The problem with that is that there's a shortage of these drugs. They are made for people with diabetes, and it means that people who really need them can't get them, which I think was one of the points that they were trying to drive home. So yeah, there is a shortage of these drugs. In the UK, I believe you need to go through a weight management service and you need to have a BMI over a certain amount to be able to go on these drugs. And hopefully, I'm not sure, but you would be supported and monitored through that process. You can only take them for up to 2 years. So it does mean that potentially whilst you're on these drugs, your appetite is suppressed, and then when you come off those drugs, then you go back to eating how you were before, and so you might gain weight again afterwards. There's various problems with side effects with these that I've heard and seen people say, of like feeling sick and stomach problems and constipation and things like that on a day-to-day basis. In terms of long-term effects, I don't think they really know the long-term effects yet because they haven't had long enough to study it, which is really concerning, really worrying for the future that might suddenly pop up in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. So there's a lot of risk involved with taking the actual drugs as well. And of course, the basis of you take something for now, but it ultimately is you're going to have to come off them at some point unless you stay on them for life. So, as also raised in the South Park episode, pharmaceutical companies benefit greatly from this. I remember watching the show Dope Sick as well and being really terrified by the prospect of that actually when I was thinking about it in terms of obesity drugs, because Ozempic is about Dope Sick is about the opioid crisis in the US and how medicating pain is big business. So what's the other thing that is big business? Well, weight loss, because everybody's always trying to lose weight and diet culture is strong, and I guess in the South Park episode they were saying this pressure of pharmaceutical companies trying to make money, so much so that compound pharmacies are creating their own, making their own version of this drug because the demand is so high. Risks involved in that, of course, is that you don't necessarily trust those people, you don't know what's in them, and if you buy it from elsewhere, like online or even an expensive private place, you could be overcharged, you could be scams. There are scams online about this as well. You don't know what's in them as well, it could, might be different, and you're not getting the medical monitoring and the support that you would need. So there's lots of risks involved. I don't think people have really thought about the impact on people with eating disorders with these as well, of how potentially easy it can be for people to get their hands on these kind of drugs, which is really, really, really dangerous. Anybody young, vulnerable, if they're able to get hold of these online, then that's really dangerous as well. overall, this is in the South Park episode, I guess for me, the point that they'd kind of ended on is, sorry if this is actually might be a bit of a spoiler, is that it's actually all these factors of society, of pharmaceutical company, even body positivity, diet culture, all these like pressures on you, and how are you actually meant to see your way through that when you've got all these things telling you what to do and what to be, and opposing each other as well, different industries opposing each other. So and it is, they have a strong pull. We live in a world where there is like a strong pull of the food industry, but also of gym culture as well, and it's a big push pull, and really these places need each other and ultimately profit on us not feeling very good about ourselves. The core of it is body shame. If we have body shame, they make money off us. And Cartman in the episodes actually just ends. It's not right because it's been horrible to everyone, but he actually just ends going, "Oh yeah, all I wanted was for people to actually just stop being horrible to fat people," and that is very true, because I don't think people necessarily hate the size of their bodies. It's just quite hard for people to live in a world of weight stigma and weight discrimination. So in that sense, is it really that you're trying to get away from? Is it actually that you want to change your body? How much of it is influenced by all these other factors? Because we really need to be thinking about what's best for us and our bodies. So I understand the pull for a lot of people to take these weight loss injections. Like, I don't blame individuals for wanting to do that because diet culture, yeah. But on a wider societal basis, I really do oppose these kind of drugs, because I think they're really dangerous, and they buy into a culture of thinking that they can cure fatness, which they can't. They're not going to. And the idea that it can do that is just reinforcing everybody's fat phobia, fear of fatness, fear that the world is all going wrong, or because everybody's gaining weight. It's just increasing all that fear, and that in turn actually creates more disordered eating as well, and it does create more body shaming, and it creates more weight stigma. So if you're an individual who's considering taking these weight loss injections, or if you are, please just make sure that you're doing that safely, that you have support around it. And I'm not sure what support you get in the NHS, but you'd probably maybe have dietary support, or something along those lines. I would also recommend having counselling as well. I'm not just saying this because I'm a counsellor, but I think it's a really good idea before you jump into something like this, because of the risks, that you just maybe look at your own relationship with food and your body to see if there's something underlying, or something you can do there first. Or if you're deciding to take them, then you can have support throughout that process. Or if you're taking them and then coming off them, you'll probably need support around that process as well, because how are you going to manage that if you do gain weight again? So yeah, please be safe out there if you're taking these drugs. Thank you so much for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, melchavuco.com. Thanks.